So first of all, we had some questions after the last event that we had, which was an evening one, which we ran by revenue, and just to collate some of the answers, because they kind of summarize in a way, I suppose, some of the issues that will still be pertinent from your point of view. So the question was UK to Ireland groupage. Would it be preferable to issue a T1 from UK to ACP Dublin or from Dublin Port to the depot? So the question was, should we get a T1 issued in the UK, or should we just get the T1 or the bond issued from Dublin Port after the goods arrive? So if we assume there are no goods subject to control so that you can actually move this load to your depot, because if there are controlled goods, you won't be able to move it to your depot. So if you plan to bond, then you will have to have the T1 issued in the UK. If you don't issue the T1 in the UK, you will not have an MRN number to put into the PBN, so you won't get access to the ferry. So you cannot come into Dublin Port and then bond from the port out when you're coming from the UK. You'll have to have a T1 issued in the UK, either terminating at Dublin Port or straight through to your depot. Now, if you have an ACE and you use a simplified procedure, then you won't have to stop at Dublin Port. You will get a green routing. The PBN will give you a green routing if you're on a simplified procedure straight through to an ACP. The next question then was for export loads to the UK from Ireland that have multiple consignees. So one truck departs Dublin with one buyer in the UK but multiple deliveries, or two, a truck departs Dublin with 10 exporters and 10 consignees. So again, we're assuming that we're not using transit into the UK, and we know until July there are no safety and security requirements needed in the UK. So on option one, a truck leaves Dublin with one buyer, one seller, one buyer with multiple deliveries. Then a single export declaration showing the shipper to the single buyer will be what you will create on this side. That will give you an MRN, which you will use to create your PBN. You'll have to check what clearance process is in place by the buyer. So if they're pre-lodging a declaration on the UK side, then you need to get that MRN and put it into the GVMS system to get a GMR. If they're not pre-lodging, then initially an EORI number, a GB EORI number for the UK importer will suffice to create a GMR on their GVMS system. So with the PBN and the GMR, you then go to the ferry operator and you will get access to Dublin Port. If you have 10 shipments on board, so 10 separate consignments, 10 exporters, 10 consignees, then you'll have to make 10 export declarations. You'll end up with 10 MRNs. You have to put the 10 MRNs into the PBN to generate a single PBN. So it's only one PBN per truck, per ferry movement. Again, you have to check with each importer what arrangements they have in the UK for clearing. If they're pre-lodging declarations, you'll get the MRN numbers for them. If they're not pre-lodging, then you get the EORI numbers. If you have a mix, then you use the mix. And that will give you your GMR once you populate the GVMS system.
Excuse me.
Bless you.
Thank you.
How will customs deal with carnets, as time frame can be very short for handling? So customs answer to this is that they're 24/7 at Dublin Port. So if a rock band is in the point, please God, sometime in the future there will be, and they finish at 2 a.m., they knock down their kit and they're heading for a sailing at 6 a.m., they can use their carnet. They have to go to the customs house, use the carnet to get it stamped. The carnet will be, you will use the carnet number to populate the PBN to get the, well, they call it the Customs Ro-Ro Service web portal. So you populate that with the carnet number to get the PBN for that load. And you would use the carnet number then for the GVMS system as well to get a GMR. So in theory, you know, you can consider it to be like a transit. You use the carnet number instead of the transit MRN number to populate the PBN system and the GVMS system. If you're moving, and sorry, customs are 24/7 after Brexit. So it should function okay. They will be there available to do exams and to deal with counties as required. Moving trailers ex-UK under transit to a TSF.
You hear that?
Yeah.
You hear?
Yeah.
I got no sound. Mostly since I got those things.
You want to mute there, lad?
You sure you haven't got the audio turned off somewhere? You know?
It is says that actually I can't turn it on.
Mm.
You know, good at that, no?
I'll go and have a look.
Can you mute everybody,
I'll
Shane?
do that.
Or do I have to do it?
I'll find a way to.
Definitely told me last week, isn't it?
Really? I'm back.
There's no point in me saying it to him because he can't hear me. So
It's going to be messy.
Yeah, well, it's going to be messy. What he's saying is in general.
In general, yes, of course.
What you need to be doing is just maybe ring somebody from Cedric or PNO, which is doing the imports and exports, just ask for the procedure.
Yeah, yeah.
That's
lads, can we mute? So moving trailers ex-UK under transit to a TSF, will the arrival info update AIS and feed down from the PBN to the individual import declarations at this time, or will SADS only receive routings on arrival at the TFS? So if you're on transit, it's unlikely that you're going to have pre-lodged all the declarations for the groupage, but you may have. But you've pre-lodged your declarations based on arrival at your TSF. You have not pre-lodged them based on arrival at Dublin Port. So the PBN will deal with the transit movement. And again, if you're on a simplified procedure where the transit is destined to an ACE or a TSF, then you will get a green routing at Dublin Port. And provided you've no controlled goods on that trailer, you'll get a green routing and free to move. So the movement will be from Dublin Port to your depot under transit, and it will only be at that stage you have to report to the NCTS system that your transit has now arrived, and you will then have to generate a G3, G4 with an associated MRN number that you will then use to reference the import declarations to get the import declarations cleared. I know that's a little bit complicated, but if you just look at the AIS system as it's going to be, we have this pentalogy. You can see that, Seamus, someone popped up on the screen of the AIS one.
No, it's still the original one. Do you want to make me co-host again, like I can mute people?
Yeah, sorry, yeah. If I can find that. No, I don't want to make Baz co-host. You got it?
Got it. Yeah, done. Thank you.
So under the AIS scheme, they talk about this pentalogy of clearance. The first step is you lodge your ENS, your entry summary declaration. Second, you have a notification of arrival of the means of transport. Third, you have the presentation of the goods. Then you have a movement to temporary storage, and then you have the placing of the goods under a customs procedure. So at Dublin Port, with the PBN system, the entry summary declaration will have been done. You have to do the ENS before you can get onto the ferry in the UK. So the ENS is done, that's step one. When you arrive, the PBN, if you've pre-lodged your declarations, the PBN will start routing your declaration. So it will deal with the notification of arrival, that will be done by the carrier, but it will deal with the presentation of goods and the movement to temporary storage. And you will then start getting routings on your pre-lodged declarations. But if you're moving under bond, then you're moving from a temporary storage location, being Dublin Port, to your own temporary storage location. And it's when you arrive at that temporary storage location, you have to create a G3, G4, then to put into your declarations so that they can start routing when you're at the bond. So your declarations will not route based on a transit arriving at Dublin Port. The transit will just let you get from Dublin Port to your warehouse. And then once you've reported the transit, created your G3, G4, put in the associated MRN into your declarations, they will then start routing. So by moving on to transit, it allows you not pre-lodge the declarations. You don't have to have them all pre-lodged because you're coming on the transit. So it takes some pressure off you at the port, but it puts an administration burden on you at your warehouse. Have Revenue got something on the border for us to present transit forms if we're to bond UK cargo arriving in Rosslare that will be for delivery in Northern Ireland? So there is nothing on the border, and there will be, in theory, nothing on the border. So EU cargo that arrives in for NI, in theory, is in free circulation and can go to Northern Ireland, provided we're not using the Republic of Ireland for avoidance purposes. So if EU goods come in and they're destined for Northern Ireland and they come in on a direct vessel, so you've loaded a container in Rotterdam of groupage, or you've loaded in Zeebrugge or somewhere, and you're shipping into Ireland and you've got goods for Newry, they can move freely up to Newry without any intervention whatsoever, provided they're destined for Newry, provided they're not been brought in so that they can be shipped over to Scotland or shipped over to Manchester as a back door. So HMRC will be, in theory, watching to make sure that the Republic is not being used as a back door into GB for avoidance purposes. If you have GB cargo coming in for Northern Ireland, and there you could easily imagine that you could have traffic coming from the southwest of England would be consolidated at a warehouse and routed out through Pembroke into Rosslare and head up to Northern Ireland. And if those goods are destined for Northern Ireland, then effectively they will have to be imported. So they will be under transit. They'll have to be under a customs procedure. So they're going to be under transit from Rosslare. And at the moment, only Belfast can be the destination. But that is under negotiation at the moment. So that could change. If the customer in Northern Ireland was an ACE or a TSF, then you could route the transit to them. So if the customer's in Enniskillen and they have ACE status with HMRC, then you could route your transit to them. They'd have to report the transit into the NCTS system. After the appropriate delay time, then they could start offloading the goods. But if your clients don't have that status, if you're bringing in groupage, you would have to go to Belfast first to get the transit discharged and then allow the goods to move. But that is under negotiation. The Northern Ireland Protocol is still not finalised, but there will be nothing on the border. We're assured that there will be nothing on the border. So we just have to see how that pans out over a little bit of time. What happens if you have an extra shipment on a trailer when it gets to your warehouse? Can you retrospectively add the shipment to your manifest? So if you've taken a load of groupage from GB into your warehouse at Dublin and you realise that there's a shipment overlanded, then you are required to report that to customs, and then you will have to create an I2 declaration rather than a H1 declaration, because it hasn't gone through the normal pentalogy. It hasn't had a notification of arrival, hasn't been presented to customs. So you will have to do this I2 to allow for that presentation notification to take place. So it'll be a slightly different customs import declaration that'll be needed. Instead of a H1, it'll be an I2, but there is a solution, there is a plan in place, but it will mean you will have to notify customs that this error has taken place. A few revisions from the last time we spoke. So the Northern Ireland Protocol, there have been some changes to it since we last spoke. We do know there's nothing on the border, or we were told still that there will be nothing at the border. They have brought in this goods at risk concept. So initially the EU were looking for the situation where EU goods landing in NI, or sorry, GB goods landing in NI would be treated as if they were EU imports or being imported into the EU. duty would be paid, and if the company in Northern Ireland could prove that these goods were not going to go into the EU, then they could reclaim that duty so that the goods were being dealt with as if they were UK landing. The UK have the approach of saying they want to assume that everything that goes to Northern Ireland is staying in Northern Ireland, and only goods that will be at risk of going into the EU will have to be imported into the EU and pay EU duty rates. So there's a different approach there. The EU wanted everything to be assumed was heading into the EU and could be in free circulation. The UK are saying, no, we want it to be assumed everything is staying in Northern Ireland and therefore is treated as UK goods, and only those at risk of filtering into the EU should be treated differently. So GB cargo for NI, the transit we spoke about a few minutes ago, transiting to Belfast, that is under negotiation. We have to see where that'll end up. Equally, goods at risk, we have to see how that ends up. It's still a discussion. So the whole Northern Ireland Protocol has not been finalised as yet, but the Northern Ireland Protocol is in place, deal or no deal. It is not dependent on the withdrawal agreement. So the Northern Ireland Protocol is a separate negotiation to the withdrawal agreement. Then when we look at transit, so since we last spoke, they introduced this concept of the Kent truck pass. They've called it a new name now. It's goods vehicle good to ship or something. They have some new name on it. But recently I saw somebody referring to it as Kermit, which I think is more appropriate. So apart from when you leave now to transit into the UK, I'll just get at this slide. When you go to transit into the UK, when you arrive at Holyhead, the GVMS system is going to take care of the Office of Arrival, the Office of Transit for your transit. So you don't have to stop at customs. You will get a green routing out of the port of Holyhead, let's say, based on the PBN and that you've correctly populated with your transit number. They then have this, they were calling it the Smart Freight app. So you will be dealing with, you will have to log on to the Smart Freight app to get a permit to enter into Kent, because they don't want traffic entering into Kent that's not prepared for shipping. They don't want trucks getting into Kent, which are going to cause backlogs. So they're developing this Smart Freight app. We'll call it Kermit for the moment. But it's quite straightforward. You're putting in your transit document number. You're ticking some boxes about what type of goods you have on. It's not terribly onerous. And it is electronic. It's a web portal again, and you will get an electronic notification that you're good to pass through Kent. So if you're stopped, then at least you have that pass. Again, you need to have a smartphone in order to be able to avail of it. When you use transit T2 going from Ireland into France, you will still have to make an ENS, an entry summary declaration, when you're returning back into the EU. So an ENS will be required to get back into France from GB side into France, even when you're on T2. And the French are also saying that they expect to be implementing SPS checks. So if you're carrying food products, then you're likely to have SPS checks on the load going back into France. So with Holland and with Belgium, they're saying they will not have SPS checks on loads coming in from the UK, which are under transit. So there is a discussion taking place between the French customs authorities and Brussels at the moment to try and find a way that the French will accept that the transit will be the document that will be allowed to let the goods back into the EU without SPS checks. What they want to see is traces being used, but Brussels, under the law, Brussels have said that Belgium are right and Holland are right. You don't have to have SPS checks. We don't have to use traces, but the French side are not on board with that currently. So at the moment, the prospect is that there will be SPS checks on food products going back into France. with all three of them, Holland, Belgium and France, there will be an ENS required. With Holland and with Belgium, with Zeebrugge in particular, because they have port community systems, they will be looking after the ENS. But with Calais, you will have to complete an ENS. And equally, when you're coming back into Ireland on a T2 that has started in France or started in Germany, you will be required to do an ENS even for T2 goods coming in. So just in terms of the transit, this was a summary that we got the other day, yesterday I think it was, from Revenue, how they see transit working on the outgoing side. So the Office of Transit, as I say, will be completed by virtue of the GVMS system, or your GMR at Holyhead will deal with the Office of Transit as you come through Holyhead or as you come through Pembroke. The GMS system will deal with the transit. And although the GVMS system may not be fully functional from January 1 for ordinary goods, they are saying that the functionality will be there for transit. So the HMRC have said that the functionality of the GVMS system will apply from Jan 1 for transit. So if you're on transit, you should get a green routing straight out of the port. You should not get delayed at Holyhead or Pembroke as you enter, or Liverpool indeed. Then you'll have to follow the Smart Freight app to get through Kent, and then you'll have to populate the SE Brexit database if you're using Dover Calais. If you're going Rotterdam, you link in with Port Base. If you're going through Belgium, you will link in with the Zeebrugge web portal that they have. So in order to assist, what we're currently working on is a handbook for members, our members, and also for the haulage industry. So Vincent is working on that currently, where we're trying to map what each port will require, so that it'll be easier for you just to be able to look up and say, right, if I'm going Dublin Holyhead, this is what I have to do. If I'm going Dover Calais, this is what I do. If I'm going Dover Zeebrugge, this is what I do. If I'm going from Hull to the Hook of Holland, this is what I do. So we're trying to develop that handbook that will be useful then for you, but also for the haulage industry, to try and help hauliers understand what the processes are. So we're trying to translate what the customs needs are. We know they want PBN, we know they want GMRs, we know they want MRNs, we know how they want to handle transit. And we're working, we had a meeting last week with the guys in Brussels. So we have their presentations from the French side, from the Dutch side, and from the Belgian side. So we're trying to build that in so that we can deal with transit as well as just goods going in and out of the UK itself. Apart from that, we're trying also to reach out to traders, importers in particular. The export community is quite well served in that the Irish Exports Association has regular updates with exporters. Enterprise Ireland would have a lot of exporters on their database, and there's a lot of information flowing to exporters. The import community is much more difficult to reach because there isn't one common kind of body that we can reach out to and say, right guys, here we go. So we've been dealing with chambers of commerce, different trade associations, the British Irish Chamber of Commerce, there's the food safety group. So we're working with different agencies to try and get information out to them. But what we also want to try and do is that probably next Friday, we're redeveloping our toolkit or revising our toolkit. And what we would like to do is that maybe next Friday, that all of us as a membership would on the same day email out to all of our customers on our databases an update on what the customers should be doing to get ready for Brexit, and in particular focusing on what we need as customs clearance brokers in order to make declarations. So a lot of people will have had a lot of information, but get your EORI number, look at your classification, look at valuation, look at origin. These are the basics that everybody knows and understands and pushes out. There is one gap in particular I think that is missed, which is what we need on a supplier's invoice, how it should be formatted, what detail we need. So that certainly is something we will be highlighting in our toolkit. But we're going to be asking you, the membership, to assist by sending this out on the same day so that everybody, as much as possible, everybody's going to get hit on the same day. Probably some of them multiple times because we probably share customers, but that we hit it out to everybody on the same day with a common message. Guys, it's not too late to get ready. Get ready, but this is what we need. This is the information that we need. Please start making sure that your suppliers in the UK are giving you proper commercial invoices and a commercial invoice should have blah, 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 blah. So it's one of the ideas that we have that we want to suggest to you, that you would cooperate with to try and get the message out there. The other thing is that Enterprise Ireland are assisting us as well with some social media. So they're looking at our toolkit. They're looking at maybe doing an animated video that they can put on their websites, but they'll also reach out to their database and push out the information that we're saying we need to get. And we've also invited them to come and make a presentation to the membership about their grant scheme, because they have a grant scheme in place, which Seamus is going to go through in a couple of minutes with you, but it's a very, very useful scheme. So I'll hand back to you, Seamus, and then we can, if you finish off on the aids that are available, and then we can have a quick Q&A if anybody wants to ask any questions in.
Okay. Zoom. Ah, fuck. Just a sec. One, two. Yeah. Okay, so yeah, Enterprise Ireland have what's called a Ready for Customs grant, which will give a company €9,000 per person to manage customs clearance. So if you want to redeploy somebody within your company to take on a customs clearance role, Enterprise Ireland will give you €9,000 grants towards that. Or alternatively, if you want to bring in new staff or bolster capacity in an existing department, we'll get €9,000 per new employee taken on for this role. So that support obviously can be used to pay their salary for X amount of time and send them on different training courses as well. But they've recognized the message that the association has been giving for the past little while, that, or for the past years now, that the industry wants to prepare, but they need investment in order to do so. They can't have somebody sitting waiting to do customs declarations until the 1st of January when there's nothing happening at this moment in time. But with about 7 or 8 weeks left now, there is time there to source new bodies, get them in, have support there to keep them financially ticking over until 1st of January, and then use that time to send them on training courses and get them prepared for the new working reality of 1st of January. So they are eager, in fairness, to assist members with this, and they're very open to conversations about it. So the website's list there, prepareforbrexit.com, ready for customs, or we do have direct details. So if you're not having any luck there, you want to give us a call, we can put you in touch directly with the appropriate parties there. In terms of customs training, Intertrade Ireland have their Brexit planning voucher scheme still available. So that's €2,250 towards training courses or consultancy in getting Brexit prepared. If you use this fund between 2017 and 2019, it is possible to reapply for a new batch of vouchers, and some members have taken advantage of that already this year. So if you've done it before, they're very open to getting the process done again. Previously, there was a lot of red tape in this. It might take about a week or two for results to come back, but they're very on the ball with this. We've seen applications go in on Tuesdays and come back on Wednesday approved, so they're eager to help as well and very much fast doing it. And last but not least, if you are looking to bolster capacity of your staff members in the area of customs clearance, the association does have a 6-week training course that covers the academics of customs clearance, but more importantly, it does go through basically a gauntlet of case studies and various declaration types that people would have to do. So we've got weeks where we cover export declarations, the hows and the whats, and some sample declarations there. Then we go through the import process with everything adjusted for the new AIS automated import system. And then we look at more difficult declarations down the line, like applying preferential origin to goods, complicated invoices, complicated customs clearance declarations. Really kind of send people through, like I said, a gauntlet of hard stuff so they will be ready for the challenge of 1st of January. So once again, €9,000 grant for each new staff member hired from Enterprise Ireland. Intertrade Ireland's €2,000 training voucher. And then if you are looking for customs training, our association has its own course also. that's me on that.
So I suppose Q&A then, Seamus, is it?
So yeah, we're good on time. So we have about 15 minutes. If anybody wants to ask some questions, please fire away. Just go ahead and either unmute yourself or send a message directly to me through the chat box.
Hi, Seamus.
Sorry, yeah.
Just wondering, on that Q&A that Tom gave us there, can we get copies of that? There's some good stuff in that.
Yeah, it's no problem.
Excellent, thanks.
And any questions that you have, if you don't think of them today, will you send them in to Seamus anyway? And we'll either bring them up with the Brexit unit if we can't answer them ourselves. If we can, we'll go back to you immediately, because we have been dealing a lot with the Brexit unit and with the CCC, and we have a meeting with CCC, the Customs Consultative Committee. I think it's next Friday, Seamus. Is it 13th maybe, or following week? And the next couple of weeks, yeah, the next couple of weeks we will be having a meeting with them. And I'd say as well, to be fair to the AIS team, they're very available for help. Now, we are having quite a few issues with AIS, but they are there. They're very, very helpful. So if there's any questions you have on AIS, push them through as well. They have their own help email address. You can send them to them, but if you want, send them to us either. There's no problem. We try. I think sometimes if we get them, we can kind of coordinate a lot together and get a general idea of where people are having issues, and we can pursue them in a different way then.
Sorry, Tom.
Yeah.
Would you mind going back over that second slide? Would that be a lot of trouble to get it up, or?
No. Well, what did it say? I can't remember now. Second slide was
regarding moving exports to GB, both single exports as well as multiple exports.
Yeah. So full load to the UK, you're going to have an export declaration, your normal EX document. That incorporates the safety and security for the EU, so you don't have to make a safety and security for the EU. It's already included in your EX. If you're not going on transit, then you will use the MRN for the EX, for your export declaration, to populate the PBN, the Customs Ro-Ro Service web portal, to create a PBN for the haulier. If it's a full load, then there's only one import declaration on the UK side. Because they have a variety of systems available to them, the customer may not be making a declaration at the point at the time of arrival. They may be deferring that for 6 months, in which case you may only need to put their EORI number, their GB EORI number, into the GVMS system in order to get a GMR. And then with your PBN and your GMR, you go down to the port. The PBN and GMR should be linked with your ferry booking, and provided they have been, the ferry operator will allow you access to the terminal and you can proceed to the UK. And then depending on what procedure, if they're making the clearance at the port, then you would wait for your routing. If they've deferred to make the declaration for 6 months, you would expect to get a green routing out of the port. Again, this is all based on non-controlled goods. So if they're controlled goods, that would be different. But if they're non-controlled goods, then that's what you would expect. If you have a single shipper with multiple deliveries, provided it's a single importer, then just consider it as a full load. So you just have one single export declaration, one single import declaration, or one EORI number to go into the GVMS system to get your GMR, and then you're free to move. And until July, the UK are not looking for safety and security declarations. Post-July, assuming they follow the timeline, you will have a safety and security declaration to complete for loads going into the UK. And that will have to be completed on the UK system. It will not be completed on the ICS system as we have access to it here, because it's a UK safety and security. It's not an EU safety and security. So from July, you will have to worry about safety and security, but before July, you don't have to worry about safety and security. There is one other caveat. The GVMS system may not be available from January for normal imports, although it will be available for transit. So we've asked HMRC and we've asked BIFA just to tell us in the meantime, what do we do in order to get the green routing out of the port? They will have a solution. We just don't know what it is yet. But if they're allowing people to defer the declarations for 6 months, we can be fairly sure it's going to be light touch, whatever their solution will be in the absence of GVMS being available. It's going to be light touch until such time as they have the GVMS system up and running. But again, controlled goods different. If it's going to be food products, live animals, that type of stuff, then that obviously is different. If you have a groupage, so 10 consignors, 10 consignees, then you have 10 MRNs, 10 EX documents here in Ireland, 10 MRNs to populate into the customs row service system to get one single PBN for that load. So there's only ever one PBN per load per ferry movement. So you get one PBN for the load. You will have 10 import declarations in the UK, or 10 EORI numbers, or 5 EORI numbers and 5 MRNs for 5 import declarations. They will go into the GVMS system or whatever temporary system they have to get a GMR. So again, you go down to the ferry, PBN, GMR, link to your ferry booking, you get a green routing to ship over, get to the UK port. If there are declarations there to be processed, you wait for your routing, but most likely you're going to get a green routing out of Holyhead fairly quickly.
Tom, sorry to cut across you there, if you don't mind, just in regard to the GVMS. One of my colleagues in the UK was on a BIFA call yesterday, and they specifically asked about the GVMS and how could we as a UK entity get access or sign up for the GVMS. And basically they were told that the GVMS is not running at the moment. In fact, it's not certain that it will run in January. And additionally, they're saying that it'll only be used in ports that are not in inventory linked. So we're not sure if it'll work in Holyhead or not.
Well, yeah, so that's the same point. We don't, the GVMS is not ready. We know it's not ready, and we're pretty sure it won't be ready in full for January, but the HMRC have said that it will be available for dealing with transits. So, you know, we have to kind of take them at their word at some level. The non-inventory ports, so all the ports except Liverpool are non-inventory. So that means then that everything has to be either pre-declared, and I think longer term we are going to see once they go past kind of the 6 months, once they go past July, or maybe they'll go to 2022, I think we're going to see them implementing the same system as we have here, where everything will have to be pre-declared at non-inventory ports. But there is one inventory linked service, which is the BG freight service, which I meant to mention, so I'm glad you brought it up. The BG freight service from Liverpool to Dublin comes from an inventory linked port to an inventory linked port. So you do not have to do a PBN to move your container by the BG freight service in order to get it to Dublin. So that port operates then like like deep sea imports will operate, like an MSC box would operate, or you know, a Maersk box would operate. So that service is unique in that it's coming from an inventory linked UK port, Liverpool, to an inventory linked port here in Dublin. So that service will not need a PBN, and you will not have to pre-lodge your import declarations for loads coming on that service or on loads going back out using that service. But Holyhead and Pembroke are not inventory linked, so they will have to have the GVMS system, or they're going to have something else in place to manage it. We just don't know yet. Like, look, they may just wave trucks through, you know, we don't know what they're going to do if they're not ready with the GVMS system. But they have said that they will deal with the transit through the GVMS system, and that will be available for Jan 1, but that the other functionality of GVMS may not be. In order to access GVMS, I think they probably told you, you will need a GBEORI number.
That's correct. Yeah, I had already done a lot of research on this
Yeah.
prior to my colleagues being on the BIFA call yesterday. And yes, you do need a GB EORI number.
Yeah. So you need your GB EORI number. So again, that's going to be in our handbook where we're saying to hauliers and members, you know, try, if you don't have an agent, corresponding agent over there, then get a GB EORI number anyway, and to have it available so that you can access the GBMS system. But yeah, there is that query over. But as I say, all the ports, none of the ports are inventory linked, and they made that specific decision not to be, because that would have meant they'd have to have control on the gates. They'd have to know what trailers are in the yard exactly and what's in them, and they don't have. It's not the way they do their business, you know. So they all went for temporary storage that's not inventory linked, just pass through here. So everything will have to be pre-declared. Ultimately, I would say with the UK ports.
Yeah, that's going to cause me a few problems. We'll be doing a lot of transits on a daily basis for air freight that flies to Asia out of Heathrow. So that's why I'm investing a lot of time in trying to find out how the GVMS exactly will work.
Yeah, well, as I said, like they're guaranteeing us it'll work for transit. Now, I don't know, given that it's not available, you kind of wonder. But then the PBN system is not available for us either. So, you know, it's all, everything is a work in progress. We have to hope that the IT guys have it all sorted, I guess, by the 31st of December or before. But, you know, they have said repeatedly that the GVMS system will be operational for transit, but only for transit from day one. And that it'll filter out then. I think they set a target date of April for it for normal cargo.
Okay, thanks very much.
We keep you updated. You know, we're in touch with BIFA all the time as well. So,
it's a question there. Do UK importers need to register separately with HMRC to use a 6-month deferral system?
yeah, so it's a choice that they make. I think that they're calling it CFSP or something. So it's a choice that they make, and they need to notify HMRC of how they plan to deal with imports. Yeah. So, like, you know, when you're dealing with a UK importer now, you need to ask them what is their plan for dealing with goods arriving after Brexit. Unfortunately, some of them are probably still going to say to you, well, the negotiations are going on, so we're going to wait till it's all sorted out and we'll decide then. But realistically, they should be making a selection now. And if they have no real system set up, then I think they should probably look at going at the kind of the deferred approach. They still need to keep a record of what's going on. So it's kind of like entry in the clearance zone record. So they're supposed to keep a record immediately of what's moved, and then they have 6 months to flesh out that into a fuller declaration. It's not that they're supposed to just say, oh, well, these goods have come in and I'll tell HMRC about it whenever I'm ready. You know, they are supposed to have a process in place. So anybody that's telling you, well, I haven't done anything about it yet, you need to be warning them that if they don't get their act together fairly soon, then you may not be able to ship to them.
Nothing else in the chat box there. We could be clear.
Well, you guys want to shout anything else? Right, so we'll have a transit session on the 11th. Yeah, on the 11th, we're going to have a transit session with SGS, which they're affiliate members now, and they offer a kind of a third-party transit solution. So if people haven't got their own guarantees in a way, they can go to them and buy a temporary guarantee off them for a load that they want to move. So they will go through that process with us on Wednesday, and then we can flesh out the transit procedure. Depending on how much detail they go into, we will flesh out the transit procedure as it will apply in any case, either going into the UK or out of the UK or as land bridge. We can flesh that out ourselves. If you find this kind of lunchtime format useful, we can continue with it. If you prefer that we would do updates, you know, kind of at 4 o'clock of an evening instead, where it can last a little bit longer, we're open to that as well. So in the meantime, any questions you have, send them into Seamus and we will deal with them. If we can't answer them ourselves, we will go back to revenue to get an answer. Unfortunately, on the UK side, there are a lot of question marks. We had that presentation in Brussels last week. HMRC were there for about 2 hours before lunch, and really there wasn't a lot of clarity in what they said. And they wouldn't share a written presentation because their concern is that it can change and then they're kind of held to account on something that wasn't cast in stone. So that tells its own story. But we have a kind of a reasonable understanding of where they're going to. We just don't know if all the nuts and bolts are going to be in place, like the GVMS system. So it's going to be a watching brief. But as I say, any questions, any queries, just send them into Seamus and we'll try and keep on top of them. And please, when we send out the toolkit next week, please consider sending this out to your customers directly then on next Friday, so that we as an organization are hitting as many traders as we can on a single day to try and just shake them out of any torpor that might be there still, to start looking at what processes they need to look at to make sure that we can make the declarations on their behalf once they need it done from January 1.
When do you hope to send out the toolkit, Tom, James?
I'd say it's going to be the middle of next week.
Okay, thank you.
We're working through some stuff with Enterprise Ireland Monday, Tuesday, so probably middle, maybe Thursday latest, So again, look, there's not going to be anything in it that's contentious from your point of view. It's going to be straightforward. It'll be very neutral, but it's just going to be trying to encourage people to engage with their suppliers. I think the biggest gap we have, there are two gaps probably that we have. Suppliers from the UK not being prepared paperwork-wise, and the haulage industry, apologies to any hauliers that we might have online here, the haulage industry in general, who have had no real experience of dealing with customs formalities in the past and haven't maybe fully engaged with what they need to do so far. Most of us, we've dealt with customs over the years, maybe more so in the past, maybe less so recently, but hopefully we've all, upskilled staff and so on. So I think in general, the membership have a decent idea about what we face in terms of how to make declarations. But I think there are two very significant gaps. One is on the haulier side. The other is that the quality of information that we get can be appalling. The last thing that we need is on January 1 is to be getting shippers' invoices coming in and having to go back to them saying, look, I need you to break out the weights, the gross weights and net weights, or the packages, or I need you to tell me what the commodity code is because I haven't got a clue what we're dealing with. Even though we only have 6 or 8 weeks left, we can get a lot of work done if people start engaging with us. So it's just to get that motivation going with shippers